Hello and welcome to the Daily Meal for Monday the 21st of February 2022. In today's Millwall news, we're going to start off with this. It's latest injury update. This is from londonnewsonline.co.uk. It's Millwall Sheffield United loanee set to be missing until the end of March with hamstring injury. Oli Burke is set to be out for between 4 to 6 weeks with his hamstring injury, roughly the same timescale as Millwall's teammate Oli Kieftenbeld. Burke, on loan from Sheffield United, pulled up with the issue in last week's championship win over QPR. Dutchman Kieftenbeld was not named in Millwall's matchday squad on Saturday. The fixture at Blackburn eventually called off just 45 minutes before kick-off. The fact that Miko completed the game makes me think he might have the potential to come back a little bit quicker, said Lions boss Gary Rowett. Timescale wise, Burke and Kieftenbeld have presented on a timescale which is similar, but Burke clearly pulled his stretching for the ball, whereas Miko's was a little bit different. He just felt really sort of stiff after the game. I feel more positive about Miko getting back sooner than Oli. We'll work through the process and see if someone presents better along the way, then we reassess it. Miko's one is a bit more difficult to take just because there wasn't one incident, it was just an overall build-up. He's been in really good form, and when a player is like that, you want him to be able to carry on. I've been quite vocal about how this season has been in terms of being very sporadic and lacking in continuity. We played really well in the second half of the Cardiff game, and you look at the West Brom and QPR match, which is as well as we played, and after you have to reassess what we do and where we are. It's tough, but we're not going to bleat about it. We've got to get on with it and find a solution. Indeed, and more on that later maybe, I don't know. But we're going to move on to this now. It's from millfc.co.uk, Mill's official club website, and it's their loan watch. They seem to have taken over from the News at Den in doing the Monday loan watch, and this is from today. So from the games at the weekend. Junior Tenzia began life on loan at Dartford with a 2-0 victory over Bath City on Saturday afternoon. The defender was involved for the full game as goals from Calvin Kalala and Marcus Dinanga kept the Darts third in the Vanarama National League South and on the coattails of Maidstone United and Dorking Wanderers above them. Arthur Penny was the only other loanee in action at the weekend, as his Welling United side were defeated 2-1 by Slough Town in the Vanarama National League. Sutton United played out aren't Welling United in the Vanarama National League South? Pretty sure they are. Sutton United played out a 1-1 draw at Hartlepool United in Sky Bet League 2, but Isaac Alofi missed out through injury, whilst Alex Mitchell and Dan Moss were handed a week off after Leyton Orient's fixture against Harrogate Town was called off due to adverse weather. And there's the upcoming fixtures for the players involved if you want to have a look at them. A couple tomorrow and a couple more on Saturday, so there you go. So that is the latest loan watch. Nothing from Joe right there. Don't know if he played. I think no, because Cray's game was off as well, but they didn't mention this in this, so they missed one there. Naughty. So that's it for the Daily Millwall news. But now we're gonna have a little in-depth look at what the fuck's going on with all these injuries. So if you want to know about what's going on, let's have a little look. So back in a time machine, we're going to go back to this. This is from, when was this from? Is there a date on this? May the 11th, 2021. And I brought you this story, I believe, when it was announced that the work on a full reconstruction of the pitch at the Den since the club moved into the stadium in 1993 has been undertaken. And that's what they did. And they did... Millwall also planning to upgrade their training ground at Calmont Road this summer. So that's what they did there. They dug up the whole thing, put in some new pipes and whatnot, and there's the tweets about it, about a company that's doing it, that did it, and that they did it, and they did it. It took place, they've done it. Took place last summer, which is one of the reasons why we didn't have a home friendly. Also COVID kind of related as well. So there you go. That's what happened. Now a lot of people are pointing their fingers at this, in terms of that must be the reason why we're having so many injuries. It must be. Literally every outfield player has been injured except a couple. I think Billy Mitchell, and it was two. It was Billy Mitchell and Millwall Kieftenbeld of this season, and now Millwall Kieftenbeld's injured now, so there's only one man left. You know what that means, Billy Mitchell. Watch out, because you're coming up. Yeah. So literally every single player has had some kind of injury. We've had ankles. A couple of ankles, I think 3. Murray Wallace, Ryan Leonard, and Ballard. We've had, I think 1 knee. We've had plenty of hamstrings, at least 5 or 6 hamstrings. So what is going on? Is it this pitch now? We saw Oliver Burke pull up on this pitch at the weekend, or was it at the QPR game? So players have been injured on this pitch. We see, even in the QPR game as well, Lee Wallace, their player, pulled up injured. Now I don't know his situation, what's going on there. Was the pitch involved in that? One thing I did notice about the QPR game, even though it was forecast to rain, and there was rain, it rained quite heavily, I think the day before, they still watered the pitch with the sprinklers before the game. So I think they probably know that they have improved the drainage at the Den, but they've probably improved it too much that the surface goes a bit hard. In terms of racing parlance, it's probably good to hard rather than good to soft, even with all that rain and all the sprinklers coming on. I think they probably know something's going on, because why would you water the pitch when it was raining quite heavily previously? And probably because the drainage is too good and they know there's something wrong. And even though they did that, 2 players in that game had to go off injured. Lee Wallace for QPR and Oliver Burke for Millwall. So is it the pitch? Well, let's get onto it. Let's have a look. So here you go. This is the company and the product that we have installed, SIS Grass Pitches. Pardon me. Now what is it? Well, the pitch is not Astroturf. It's not plastic. There are pieces of plastic in it, and they're mostly underground. And we're going to get into that. So yeah, so hybrid pitches. So it's 95% natural grass pitch. So it's 95% grass, proper grass, real grass, 5% plastic and whatnot. So there you go. They did the World Cup final venue at 2018 World Cup. And a lot of high places as well, high stats places. So they've got a machine which is electric, it's not petrol powered, and it stitches the pitch. It uses lasers apparently, and here's some of the stadiums that have got it. A lot in Russia, of course, because they got very bad weather. Bilbao, Fulham, 1860 Munich, AFC Bournemouth, Celtic, Newcastle, Southampton. So there you go. And a lot of this stuff is what they've got on their website is just PR puff. It's just words that go round and round, not really telling you anything, just a lot of nonsense really. So we've sourced the best yarns and developed unrivaled technology to create a 95% natural turf that delivers a pitch capable of much longer playing hours than natural grass surfaces. plus the robustness, endurance normally associated with synthetic turf without compromising the performance for the players. This new hybrid pitch technology means that the pitch can be played in just 5 days, as they did at Derby County Stadium. So what they're saying there is it stands up to wear and tear and lasts longer. They're not saying it's better, because that's one unit to measure on. How long does it last? Because if you had a grass pitch, you've all seen the signs. Please keep off the grass. Why keep off the grass? Because if too many people walk on the grass, you fuck up the grass. So if you had a grass pitch, you weren't allowed to use it. You had to be left alone to recover, like a footballer who's just played a hard game. So there's more PR puff here. So they got two things. They can stitch it down to a depth of 180 millimeters, or they got a new one out now, SIS Grass Light, which can be stitched down to 90 millimeters. So if you don't have the depth in your ground under the pitch, they can do it to half the depth that they usually do. And in terms of maintenance, without doubt, the most important operation carried out on a hybrid grass pitch will be the annual renovation. So once every 12 months, the sward must be cleaned out to allow the SIS grass fibres to be recovered and the organic build-up to be removed. To find out more about that, please visit blah 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 blah. So you can't just put it in and forget about it. It needs to be sorted out every year as well. That's a nice little earner for them as well. I suppose they have to come in and do that, and there's a fee for that or whatever. But there you go. That's what you're paying for, isn't it? So this is what we've installed in the thing. And here's same from the same website is a bit more. A hybrid turf system. So they've got a guide here. So hybrid grass is a mixture of natural grass supported by artificial fibres. This is done in two ways: either stitching the fibres into natural turf one by one, or laying an artificial grass carpet on top of the natural grass. So that's the cheap option. SIS pitches offer both of these systems, so SIS grass produces a 95% natural grass pitch, which we've already said. So it's 95% grass pitch, and there you can see all the increased playing hours, better surface stability, according to. So it says it's safer for. Oh, here we go. Here's when they start making claims that may be contested in court. SIS grass is tested and proven to provide a turf surface that is safer for players, increasing player confidence, ability to move faster, and to enable them to perform at their best for longer. Safer for players compared to what? Compared to what? Compared to gravel? Compared to dirt? Compared to concrete? So I suppose they could get away with that because they didn't say it's better than turf. So it's 8 to 10 year lifespan, and here you can see. So that's what it looks like when they put it in there. All these green things you see on the screen now, that is the plastic sewn into the ground, into the dirt, and this is how they do it here. See these green things here, and the green things going down, that's the plastic. So it's like a loop with two grasses on the end of it that stick up. And they got the short one and they got the little one there, the longer one. And the thing in the middle, between the two green things going down, that's the real grass, the root system. And another thing is the roots of the real grass can attach themselves onto this fibre, fake plastic grass under the ground, and it helps it hold on, helps it not to come up, which is what do they call it, divots. They said there's less divots when you do it like this, a lot less divots, so the grass stays in the ground, which is good. And then, so I think that's the one that we got, the one above, but then they do this other one, which you can see here. It does look a bit shitter, a bit cheaper. It's got holes in it that does let the real grass come up between it, but that's not the one we had, I believe. So these are your hybrid turf pitches. So here's what's happening. They tell you how to fix it, sort it out. Every 12 months they've got to clean out the sward. The first action will be to remove the existing herbage, and they've got their own machine to do that with a registered trademark there, Universe Rotor. So you can't just do it yourself; they have to maintain it. That's how they get the money, on the maintenance. This is the only machine which should be used for this operation. This process can be carried out by clubs in-house if the equipment is available, or by employing specialist sports pitch contractors. The aim of the process is to remove the herbage organic layer, leaving only the clean root zone beneath ready for reseeding. So they've got a special machine now that takes up the natural grass, I think, if I'm reading that right, and then but doesn't touch the plastic stuff, and then you can sow new grass onto it, I believe. Failure to renovate can result in hybrid grass fibres becoming buried on the pitch surface, becoming difficult to play on, offering poor performance for players, and a risk that your surface will become damaged. Well, this isn't a problem for us because ours has been in for less than a year. So that's not really the concern at the moment. Now you could say maybe they didn't put it in properly, but I don't know. Seems alright to me. The pitch seems to be looking, the pitch at the 10 seems to be looking quite good and holding up quite well. So what is happening? What the fuck is happening? So let's move on now and read. So this is from ent.iet.org. Yeah, I think it's Institute of something, blah, I don't know. Institute of Engineering and Technology. Hybrid football pitches, while the grass is always greener. Today's top level football pitches look pristine and play even better. The secret is hybrid grass, part real, part synthetic. Even when it rained so much that this year's Manchester City Champions League clash with Mönchengladbach had to be cancelled, the stadium's drainage facilities worked well enough to get the pitch playable for the following evening. Back in the 70s and 60s, the winter rains turned English football pitches into mud baths. The country's best players would slide around covered in mud and water, taking divot after divot out of the pitch. When it didn't rain, the rain and play damage to the pitch was so great that the only green on the field would often be the goalkeeper's shirts. Back then, one of the worst mud heaps was Derby County's baseball ground, but not because it rained more in the North Midlands than anywhere else. It was said that Derby's maverick manager Brian Clough sometimes instructed his ground staff to water the pitch, apparently believing a wet pitch suited his team's style of play. He also thought the wetness would be an advantage against European teams who Clough believed had superior technical ability, but who didn't fancy it when things got a bit rough. Derby left the baseball ground in 1997 to play at nearby Pride Park. It's now called the iPro Stadium. This season, the clubs had new high-tech playing surface installed on the main pitch and 4 training grounds. That's the one that's what he got, the CIS Pro. Whereas the previous one sometimes looked like it was 97% mud and 3% grass, this new one actually is 97% grass and 3% artificial fibres. Phil Blackwell, project director with SIS Pitches, which is the company we use, I just showed you their website, who installed the artificial fibres into the newly laid turf, says the company uses a giant laser guided sewing machine on tracks to weave the polyethylene yarn into the ground. Blackwell, who used to be Ipswich Town's head groundskeeper, explains that the machine moves slowly across the pitch, implanting the yarn in rows 18 centimetres deep into the subsurface, with 2 centimetres of the fibre poking out of the ground. At Derby, the fibres were placed at 2 cm intervals, but the machine settings can be adjusted to provide wider gaps between yarns. Interesting. So what did we go for? Did we go for 2 centimeters or did we go for more? Don't know. 3% off. So where's this? When's this story from? This story's from 2016. So that's what, 5 years ago? So in 5 years, have they figured out what the perfect ratio is? Is it 2 centimeters or is it more? Don't know. 3% artificial pitch fibers might not seem much, but Blackwell says these fibers make all the difference. With 100% natural pitch, you'll see changes due to weather. He explains some pitches will change quite considerably throughout the year. Hybrid pitches maintain consistency and stability. Blackwell adds that these fibers hold the root zone together. That's what I just showed you on the picture before. The natural grass grows around the fibres, anchoring it. When a player goes into the ground with their boots, the fibres stop the root zone from becoming displaced, and there's less chance of a player taking a divot out of the ground. The pitch recovers faster after the game as there's less damage. So here's the thing. If a player puts their foot into the ground and has enough energy to dig out a chunk of the ground in the old days, now when he does that, the ground has resistance and it does not do that. So where is the energy going? E equals mc squared. Transfer of energy. If you paid attention in science class, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So if a player digs their feet into the ground, in the olden times when it used to, all that energy used to dig into the ground and cause a divot to come out. What's happening now? They're digging in their feet into the ground and the energy's going up into their body and fucking up their body, ripping up their ankles, doing their ankle ligaments, knee ligaments, hamstrings. Where is that energy going? Is that what's happening? Is this what's happening to Millwall Football Club and their players? Maybe, maybe not. Hybrid turf pitches are used worldwide by top level football clubs. All current Premier League sides have them, and most designed by Desso Sports Systems. Hybrid pitches are also widely used in rugby, American football and baseball. SIS pitches are installed in all these places. The SIS and Desso systems are similar, except that Desso uses polypropylene fibre, which is very strong, stiff and hard, whereas SIS uses a polyethylene fibre, which it says is softer and therefore more comfortable for the players. Okay, so that's in terms of brazen injuries, which is sliding on the surface. In terms of, yeah, that like sliding into tackles and whatnot, which if you've ever done that in an Astroturf pitch, don't do it because it'll scab you up. And there have been some discussions that if you do that on these 4G pitches with the rubber beads in them, the rubber can get into your cuts and your scratches on your knees and on your shoulders and whatnot if you're a goalkeeper. And there have been links to cancers and whatnot in young people, and of course no one really wants to look into it because that's a serious problem. If that's the case, that's something's got to be done about it if it is doing that. So, but that has been talked about. So over the years, some players and managers have accused hybrid pitches of being too hard. Yes, indeed. So this is where it's come from. The root, like the finger pointing at the new pitches. Is this what's fucking up Millwall Football Club's players? Because some managers and footballers in the past have said these things are not good. Former Spurs and West Ham boss Harry Redknapp, recently retired England manager Roy Hodgson, and French legend Thierry Henry are three high-profile critics. Harder surfaces, the argument goes, can lead to impact injuries in the legs and lower back with less give in the surface. Boots can get stuck in the turf, causing over-rotation in the lower limb or a twisted ankle if you're speaking English. On harder pitches, players can reach peak velocities quicker and they don't get dead legs like they used to on old soggy pitches, said Mike Davison, managing director of Kinetic Medical Group London, part of FIFA Medical Centres of Excellence network. The pitches deliver back more reactive energy to the players, but players will feel the shock of going through their bodies, inner joints, bones and tendons. Yes. Of course it does. If you change it, something's going to change. In 2015, Bournemouth striker Glenn Murray blamed the newly installed hybrid pitch for cruciate ligament injuries picked up by 3 Bournemouth players in the first 4 weeks of the season. The club later issued a public statement saying it had investigated the matter and found no connection. But here's the thing. It might not be the pitches themselves. Here's the thing. If you're playing on grass, and then suddenly you're playing on something that's not grass but similar to grass, maybe you need to think about what you're doing. Maybe you need to change your boots, change your studs, change what you're doing, how you playing the game. Maybe you need to consider that. How many studs you're using? You're using moulded ones, you're screwing ones, hard ones, soft ones. You can't just carry on as if you're playing on a grass pitch when it is not a grass pitch. Davison adds that so far there is no clear scientific evidence that either refutes or supports the suggestions that hybrid pitches contribute to injuries. Yes, there isn't. Even though it's been going on for a few years now, there are some studies, but they're comparing Astroturf and natural turf. They're not comparing these hybrid pitches because it's mostly grass, 97% grass, 95% grass. So surely it would be just like grass. Like, what's the problem? But yeah, but it's not, because there's no divots coming out. All the energy's got to go somewhere. And not only that, but so the guy here said, when they were running on old soggy pitches, that would wear them down, tire them out. But they managed to run probably for longer, for faster, on the harder pitches, on this hybrid pitch. So that's probably contributing to it as well. So in 2014, FIFA and UEFA released a study that claimed that football turf hybrid turf presented no more or less risk of injuries than natural turf. There was a slight increase in ankle injuries on football turf, but fewer muscle injuries, says Dr. Jan Ekstund, Vice Chairman of the UEFA Medical Committee. The FIFA study did not look at back pain and general soreness or long-term injuries, though. Black Belt won't be drawn on the issue, only to say that softer fibres, as used in SIS pitches, might be better for players during sliding tackles. Yeah, I just mentioned that before. All modern football pitches are designed to cope with a lot of water in a short period of time. They have sand or gravel root zones and drain at high rates. In certain parts of the world, however, pitches also have to contend with temperatures that drop well below zero. Now, here's the thing. Well, I'm saying maybe it's not the surface, maybe it's what's underneath, the drainage. It drains too well. It's making it too hard. Maybe that's the issue. And then they talk about putting things in Russia and whatnot. And there you go, there's your root system and things that I just showed you before. The yarn. This is a better picture than the one before because it's annotated. Tells you what's going on. There's the undersoil eating. See how deep it goes, how the drainage goes. That's, yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. And here's the thing that I said about the pitches with rubber crumb getting into your scratches and causing cancer. That was very carcinogenic, they call it. I'm just going to scroll through this. I'm not going to read it out. It's not really pertinent to the issue at hand, but it does seem very serious. And so I'm just going to read it. I'm not surprised no study has been commissioned in either the US or Europe to explore these cancer cases, he said. The absence of evidence is not, of course, not evidence of absence. So no one's even looking into it in terms of that. But let's move on now to this. So this is from sportsmanagement.co.uk. Pretty much this is from 2017, so pretty much what we've already said. So the first one was developed by a Dutch carpet specialist Desso in 1992. It's called the Grassmaster. So Grassmaster, so this company Desso, they were the first ones to launch this, and the SIS, UK based company SIS, launched a similar product in 2015. So that's not that old compared to the original one, but they come in and try to do it a little bit better. I'm just going to scroll through this, and they just talk about mostly the benefits. And they talk about okay, so here we go. So Croatian top flight team HNK calls a sensation during the 16-17 league season. The club managed to break the dominance of defending champions Dynamo Zagreb, which had won the league title 11 seasons running, and they contributed the success to their hybrid pitch. So and you can see why a lot of teams are interested in that, if it helps you win on the pitch. The best example of how a stitched hybrid system can transform the fortunes of a pitch and ensure longevity is the playing surface at Liverpool's famous Anfield Stadium. The first Grassmaster pitch was laid down in 2001, and only this year, 2017, was deemed in need of a replacement. Following the installation in July, the Reds will play their 17-18 seasons on the brand new Grassmaster pitch. So it's got a 16-year life in it there. So yeah, there you go. There's some pictures, and there's the machine. I believe that's the stitching machine. So there it is, doing its job, getting going, getting action. So we're going to move on to this now from goal.com. Do artificial football pitches cause more injuries than grass? Do they? Do they? Now, like I said, a lot of the studies are about Astroturf versus natural turf, not hybrid pitches. So it's not really going to help us if to try and point the finger at this, to say that hybrid pitch is causing injuries to Millwall football players. But let's have a read this. Earlier this season, Man United voiced concerns about having to play a Champions League match on Young Boys' plastic pitch at the Stade de Suisse, while the SPFL has been faced with a lobby from the Players' Union in Scotland called for such parks to be banned in top flight. Speaking in February, Rangers manager Steven Gerrard, who saw midfielder Jamie Murphy seriously injured on Kilmarnock's Rugby Park service earlier this season, told the media, "I agree with the majority of the players in terms of trying to get them out of the game at the elite level. I've given my opinion on this before. I don't like plastic pitches. I don't like playing on them. I think they're dangerous. I respect the teams that put them in place for financial reasons. But for me, being a player and now being a coach, I believe the game would be in a place if there were no plastic pitches." So that's not really talking about what we have, the hybrid pitch, but they're not happy with them. And then they talk about pitch in Bern for a European match, and Manchester United left Valencia out because he's got a knee injury and they didn't want him playing on it. because it would mess up his knee and cause a re-aggravation of the injury. And then Harry Redknapp the same when he was a Tottenham boss. And then Roberto Martinez, after the players played there, said they needed extra recovery time because it takes a lot out of you because the surfaces are harder. Now that's one thing so that we can look at is Astroturf versus natural turf. Astroturf is harder. The players feel more fatigued and worn down. So the hybrid turf that we know that is harder because it's better drainage and no divots come out because it's stitched into the ground and the roots come onto the natural roots go onto the stitches. So that makes it harder, denser, you would say. So if Astroturf being harder is more fatiguing to the players, surely you will think hybrid system is the same. You would think that, no? And then they say there are studies. There was a study in Portugal that showed that artificial surfaces do injure more players. And there's one, but then there was one in the USA. But this was with female players who said, no, there wasn't any more injuries on artificial turf. And then there was a study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine about the Swedish Premier League that said there wasn't any increase compared to players who trained on artificial, trained on grass. And there wasn't an increase in ankle sprains. I know while that study did find that there was an increase in ankle sprains, conversely it suggested there was actually a lower injury rate during match play. So the only injury that increased was ankle sprains. So that's probably because the ground didn't give way because it's plastic. And then there was another study saying that there was a study in 2017 by the Orthopedic Journal of Sports Medicine that looked at fields that had not been properly looked after with the rubber crumb and the silica sand infill. Over a 12-year period compared to the previous 8 years, he said in the first 2 years of the new pitch there was a decrease in ankle sprains which subsequently increased until additional rubber crumb was inserted in 2014. So that's obviously not what we're talking about as AstroTurf. But yeah, ankle sprains is a problem. Meanwhile, there was a statistically significant increase in upper extremity trauma after the move to the plastic surface. So so while there is no magic formula for preventing injuries, experts suggest that the key is in using the correct footwear for the surface. After a study on American footballers in 2012, it was suggested that players can get too good a grip on the surface. What the problem is, we think, is the shoe surface interface, said Dr. James Bradley, the chief orthopedic surgeon for the Pittsburgh Steelers NFL franchise. You can change the molding patterns on the shoes to decrease friction. Dr. Jason Dragoo, who led the study which showed an increased incidence of knee injuries in the sport, added if you are in the wrong position because your leg doesn't give way as it does on grass, it can distribute that force to your knee and cause an injury. The way that you move and the way that you pivot and change direction will determine the risk of having an ACL tear. So even if we do have an increased risk on the turf with the shoes, we can modify that by making sure that the athletes are moving right. Decreased traction, however, may cause a decrease in performance as there is more chance of the player slipping. Nevertheless, it could be the price we're paying to reduce injury risk. So maybe that's what's happening with Ben Thompson. Maybe, well, I don't know. No, because he was slipping before we had the new pitch installed. But there you go. You which one do you go? Do you go with shoes that don't have too many studs in them, that don't stick into the ground, which will help you not get fucked up by the pitch, but you might fall over. So which one do you go? Which way do you go? So now we're going to move on to this. This is from the Irish Times. This is again comparing 4G pitches to grass, not hybrid pitches, but there is a link there. So a recent Premiership study bears out belief that plastic pitches are more dangerous. This was from 2018, and it's about rugby. So in August, Munster's new 4G pitch surface at Musgrave Park was laid. The conversion from natural grass to plastic complete and ready for the visits of London Irish and Exeter Chiefs with 2 pre-season friendly matches. Munster followed trends at Glasgow Warriors and Cardiff Blues, who both play home matches on a synthetic surface, while Leinster played competitively on their plastic in Donnybrook. Munster's first match on a surface arrived 2 months after Scarlet's back row John Barclay ruptured an Achilles tendon at Scottstown, and fullback John McNichol called for artificial pitches to be outlawed. The following day, Wasp flanker Jack Willis, who had just been called into the England squad, ruptured ligaments in his right knee on the Saracens' artificial pitch. The Premiership now has 3 clubs who use the artificial surface: Saracens, Newcastle and Worcester. Gloucester intended joining them this season, but after taking advice from their players, the club is spending on a surface that will be a hybrid of grass and artificial fibres. So there you go. That sounds like what we got. So then you talk about, so here you go. Because it's rugby, they don't know if the injuries are because of it's rugby or because it's the plastic pitches. The injuries may be perceived to be part of the game of rugby, a tough luck and coincidental, but the most recent Premiership study bears out the belief that plastic pitches are more dangerous and cause more injuries than grass. It also begs the question why, from a player welfare perspective, are they becoming more rather than less common? So the RFU crunched numbers on grass and synthetic pitches in Premiership rugby and came up with a report after the 2016-17 season. It said that for that season, 608 injuries were recorded on grass, 170 on artificial surface. With just 3 pitches, the exposure to plastic was less, but returned injury rates of 129.1 per 1,000 hours compared to the grass weight of 89.6 per 1,000 hours. The total hours representing 25 matches. The average severity for match injuries on grass was 32 days compared with 37 days for artificial turf. So there you go. As stated in the official report, the overall burden of injuries on natural grass was 2,481. So that's days missed, I think. Days missed by people who got injured on those surfaces. It was 2,481 per 1,000 days, compared with 4,740 per 1,000 days on artificial turf, a staggering difference. So there you have it then. So that's fully plastic pitches there. It does seem to have been proven that it's messing up rugby players in the game. Yeah. So the RFU study saying there are more injuries on plastic pitches, and the injuries are more severe, that more players are missing after injuries on plastic pitches. So very serious, very, very serious. So moving on now to this. This is a one study from that I pulled up. This is from Sports Medicine Open, Spring Open, and yeah, they did a study here. The results. So basically, they just collected data from players, but they sent out questionnaires to players, asking them how they got injured. How did they get any injuries from playing on plastic pitches? How do they feel about plastic pitches? So it's kind of self-reporting. It's not really objective, it's subjective. But the results were 91% of players believe the type of condition or surface could increase injury risk. Abrasive injuries along with soreness and pain were perceived to be greater on artificial turf. Surface type, surface properties and age were all potential risk factors identified by the players and linked to the playing surfaces. So the players themselves, that's what they said. Going into the background here. So here, 90% agreement by elite North American players that the type and quality of a playing surface could impact the risk of sustaining an injury, that the perceived risk was higher on Astroturf. The players also self-reported longer recovery times after games and training on Astroturf, which was attributed to the increased feelings of joint and muscle soreness. So not only that, but they're not, after they train on the harder Astroturf pitch, they feel fucked. It feels worse. And that's what they're saying. That's what the players are saying. And if we go down to conclusion, players were concerned with the soreness, aches and pains experienced on different playing surfaces, which may not be adequately captured in literature or injury reports. Injuries such as ligament damage were closely linked to Astroturf, despite current literature not supporting this perception. Surface properties partially explain the perception of injuries linked to a particular surface. Yeah. Future studies should better capture surface properties objectively and subjectively to form the focus of injury comparison studies rather than discrete surface types. Surface experience measures differentiate between footballing nations' perceptions of injuries and could help direct future research studies. So they're saying, the players saying there's something going on here, maybe we should have to take a look at it. So what is going on? Is it the surface, or is it the drainage? So let's move on now to this. This is from Penn State College of Agricultural Studies. What do they say? Well, let's have a read of it. How to measure and manage surface hardness on natural turf athletic fields. Managing surface hardness on natural turf athletic fields requires both routine testing and proper field maintenance. Approximately 15% of concussions in football and soccer, so they're American, so they call American football and football soccer, result from the head impacting the player and surfaces. Head injury risk can be reduced by ensuring playing surfaces meet industry established Gmax thresholds and receive routine maintenance. Surface hardness on natural turf fields is best managed in the off season. However, in season maintenance practices can also provide temporary Gmax reductions without sacrificing playability when properly performed. So measuring the surface hardness, how do you do that? Surface hardness is measured by determining the Gmax of the playing surface. Gmax is a numerical value representing the hardness of the surface, via values indicating a harder surface. The Clegg Impact Soil Tester is the device most commonly used to measure Gmax on natural turf fields. This instrument can be purchased and used by field owners, or testing can be conducted by a field testing agency. The NFL requires Clegg Impact Soil Tester to be used to measure Gmax prior to every game. All areas within the field of play must be below 100 Gmax. If any area of the field is above 100, steps must be taken to reduce surface hardness and the field must be retested. Now I assume what they mean by that is sprinkling some water on it to make it a bit softer underneath. Gmax should be tested at various locations around the field, with special attention being paid to high use locations such as midfield areas and goal mouths. At a minimum, testing should occur yearly. However, Gmax of natural turf fields can vary greatly over a relatively short period of time. Changes in soil water content and the amount of field usage and resulting soil compaction each have significant impact on Gmax. Frequent Gmax testing allows the hardness levels to be tracked over time, which helps identify areas of concern before the 100 Gmax threshold is reached. So there you go. What's the Gmax of the training ground at Calmont Road? What is the tree max? In dry soil conditions can produce high Gmax levels. Proper soil moisture should be maintained. Do they water the ground and do they water the training ground before the players go on it? Do they? Do they? Do they? Now it rains a lot, so why would they? But if you've had new drainage put in, maybe it needs to be watered. And here's the thing. So what they say there, that the NFL uses this Clegg impact soil tester. Now, I don't know if you know anything about the NFL, but they've had a massive problem with concussions. Mostly caused by head-to-head hits, but some head-to-ground hits as well. And it's a big legal problem for them, and that could cost them billions and billions and billions of dollaroonies. So they brought this in. You need 100 Gmax or below. You cannot have a hard ground in the NFL. You need to test the ground. If it is too hard, you need to water the ground until it is not too hard. That must happen. That's what they say. And they need to use the Clegg Impact Soil Tester. So what is that? What is that? Well, here it is. This is the Clegg Impact Soil Tester. Sports surface testing such as golfing screens, tennis surfaces, football, cricket and rugby pitches are provided by the light hammer weights. The tester consists of a compaction hammer operating within a vertical guide tube. When the hammer is released from a fixed height, it falls through the tube and strikes the surface under test, decelerating at a rate determined by the stiffness of the material within the region of impact. A precision accelerometer mounted on the hammer feeds its output to a handheld digital readout unit which registers the hammer deceleration. For sports surfaces, the readings are displayed in gravities, whilst for road applications, the displayed readings are impact values. The IV indicates soil strength and shows good correlation with California bearing ratio test results. The Clegg Impact Soil Tester is manufactured and marketed by SDI under an exclusive license from Dr. Baden Clegg Pty Limited, the Australian inventors. So there you go, this is it. Now I don't know about you, but I haven't seen this being used at the Den before the game kicks off. Have you? No. Do you think they have one of these? Probably not. Now this thing costs about £3,000, and maybe it's something we need at the training ground or at the Den. How hard is the ground? How dry is the ground? Is it too dry? Is it too hard? Is it causing injuries to untold Millwall players this season? Now, they've changed the pitch at the Den. They've changed the pitches in the training ground. So surely you need to change the way you look at them. You look after them. You play on them if you're a player. What kind of boots you use. All of these things need to be looked into. You can't just carry on as before, because it isn't as before. It's changed. The NFL, the biggest game in the world, billions and billions of dollars. The Super Bowl, all that razzmatazz. They tell their teams, measure the field with this thing before a game, and if the Gmax is 100 or more, fix it and test it again. We're not having our players playing on hard surfaces. It's not good enough. And there you go. Is this the solution to our injury crisis? This £3,000 yellow thing that looks like a vacuum cleaner? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. But something is definitely going on. and something has been definitely happened at other clubs when they've installed hybrid pitches at Bournemouth and other places. Can you prove it was the pitch? No, but maybe it's not the pitch. Because maybe you got used to playing on a muddy shithole of a pitch before, and when that changed, you carried on as normal, and you didn't take it easier. You didn't change your boots. You didn't do all kinds of things. You just carried on as before, and that's fucked you up. So maybe it's something that seriously needs to be looked into. But there you go. All the links for all these things that websites that I've looked at today will be put in the description. If you want to check them out more thoroughly, please feel free to do so. If you work in soil or groundskeeping type thing, leave a comment. Is it the pitch? Do you think it's the pitch? Why is every outfield player bar one been injured this season? Something must be going on. And on that note, before I leave, Bristol City away for the under-23s tomorrow, 1 o'clock kickoff. It's being held at Robin Tye Performance Centre, which I do believe they have a small stand there. I don't know if you will be allowed entry, and nothing has been put on Bristol City's website. But even if not, you can follow the game online tomorrow, 1 PM kickoff, and in tomorrow's video I'll tell you how they got on. But in terms of today's video, we are done. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.